All right, so today I'm gonna just take you through a normal edit, trying to salvage a picture and make art out of it. Basically, um, what you're seeing on my screen here is a picture of a ship that washed up on shore in Jacksonville, Florida. And you could see these people right here. They were just doing a personal photo shoot, and I waited patiently for quite some time, and that girl was all about trying to get 400 pictures. And we're going to take this and basically make it look, let's see if I can get over to it here. I'm going to make it look a little more like that with the colors, but then get it empty, kind of like that. So we'll go ahead and open it. I'm using Bridge. I don't use Lightroom, just so people understand my editing. Lightroom is kind of Bridge and Camera Raw put together. Then you have to export everything over to Photoshop. For me, these are all linked to Photoshop a lot easier. And with just clicking a button, I'm in it. Camera Raw is basically Lightroom, but it is directly going into Photoshop. So give you a little explanation of what I got going on. So here we got the picture. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Adobe Landscape. It makes the contrast a little bit different, and it also just brings out some of the colors that would have been there. Obviously, it's still very dull, and that's okay. So we're going to start with the crop. I like to kind of addicted to the 8x10 crop. And then you got your rule of thirds, so I'm going to take over here. You got a grid that's already built in. You could totally have the ship down here to where the ship is on the lower third. You could even like split the ship. It depends on how much dead space you want up here and or down here. Obviously, if you pushed it all the way up, you wouldn't get the mast of the ship. So I'm gonna go right about where the black on the ship meets, and I think I'm gonna take the crop in just a little bit. There's my crop. I'm going to get rid of these people once we're into Photoshop. I'm going to get rid of these people. I'll probably leave the bridge there, or the pier, I should say. It's a pier, but I'm not sure. So what we're going to first do, a lot of times I'll just hit auto just to see what Photoshop thinks. It's pretty good, honestly. And I'm going to tell you, I don't have any presets. I just set up this computer, so there's no trickery going on. It's not like I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff that won't make sense. As long as you're understanding either Lightroom's screen or Adobe Camera Raw, like what I use, it'll make sense. I think I'm going to start with auto and get that, and then I'm going to build off of that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click this icon here, and I'm going to hit subject. It's usually pretty good. It even clicked these people. It's okay. Ignore that. The problem is it also clicked part of the sky here. So I'm going to subtract sky and see if that'll. Well, that helps quite a bit. Still a little bit up in here and here. You can tell from the reddish pink hue. And so what I'm going to do is hit subtract again. And I'm going to just hit my brush. I'll get the brush down a little bit in size. And we're just going to brush over. Sometimes I get a little willy-nilly with the brush, so it's better to go slow. There's no need to erase here. I always have to tell myself that. I always have to say, hey, slow down, Greg. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the exposure up because it's the opposite side of where the sun was, but we still want to see it. I think we could go up, let's go up to about 0.50. And I'm going to leave the highlights alone right now. I'm going to go down to shadows and see if we can get some of the detail back in the shadows right below the boat here, which looked black when we first looked at it, but it's actually red. Bring the whites up just a little bit. I'm going to bring the blacks up just a bit. So there'll be nothing that's truly black. It's going to be shades of gray. And probably leave the contrast alone for now. And then under highlights, you could kind of rock it back and forth. Okay, so since the sun is behind the ship here, we don't have to worry about that blowing out. We have to worry more about bringing back the stuff behind it. So we're going to stop right there on the ship. We'll probably come back to that. We're going to do another mask. So we'll create new. This time I'm going to just do a linear gradient. I'm going to go right up to here. And here again, we're going to take the exposure up just a little bit. And this is just so we can get the silhouette and the reflections. And so we're going to get that up. I may at the very end actually taper a little vignette around. I'm going to take the highlights up, shadows up. We've got a little bit of warmth here. Since we added that, I'm going to leave the ship this way, not going warm. I'm actually going to go cool. Go the opposite direction just a little bit. You don't want to go too much because what will happen is your whites will turn blue, or the shadows in the whites will turn blue, which will make the whites look blue. A little bit's okay. If you go the opposite direction, I'll just show you, it starts looking yellow. Don't want that. I think when the sun is coming into the scene, anything that's behind the sun would be in shadow and wouldn't be all that warm. The other thing we could do, I usually do this at the end, but I'll do it right now, is you can bring up texture and clarity into your subjects as long as it's not people. If you do it on people, it's going to make them look old or damaged or whatever. But this is an old damaged boat, so we want to do that. And then dehaze, you can rock back and forth. I'm not going to use it all on here, but you can see what it's doing. If it goes back, it brightens it up a little bit and makes it kind of foggy, fuzzy a little bit. If it goes the other way, darkens it and adds more detail. I don't think we need that because we did add the clarity and the texture. All right, making some waves here, guys. So now let's go ahead and do one more mask. We're gonna select sky. Did a pretty good job selecting sky. I'm not even gonna bother. I'm gonna bring that exposure up. It was actually really, really bright that day. I'm gonna take these highlights down. So you can see in here, now you're starting to see texture in the sky. You can play with the whites. I think they're gonna be needed. Blacks, you could bring some blacks in there. I think taking the blacks down to about 10 would be all right. And then we're going to bring that temperature up just about to 10. And I'm gonna put a little bit of magenta hue in there, maybe to 15. But now this is starting to look purple. That's easy to fix. We'll just do a linear gradient. Bring the lights up. I'll make that transition a little bit better. All right. I like that purplish hue. I think if we created one more mask in here and did a radial instead of a linear, just bring this to here. It was kind of just almost a stormy day that day. So again, I'm going to take the opposite of magenta and these purple colors is green. I'm just going to go back maybe to 10. And then I'm going to rock this blue in here. And then pick up these whites a little bit. I think maybe a little more contrast in there too, just because. Okay, so now you got a little bit of blue. You got the whites and everything. We're getting there. We're getting there. Trust the process is what they always say. So another radial. This time we're going to go over the sun. I want to put it like put the center right where the sun of the sun is. And we're going to rock that up to maybe 15. Get a touch more saturated, maybe 10. You could play with the tint. I don't want to go too crazy with the tint because I want that orange to show up. And we'll maximize that here in a little bit too. So I'm just going to take it down there. This can even go out a little bit more. Tilt that. So I'm going to go back to the original piece. It's starting to just get lost a little bit. I'm going to take that exposure up just a little bit more and take the contrast up just a little bit more. I think I will put a little bit of warmth in there now that we've added these other things, and a little more saturation, just a touch. I mean, it's all about these fine-tuning things. You don't want to, go too far too fast, but you also want to go as far as you can, without it looking fake. Now, if you go to just global adjustments here, if you take the exposure up, it ends up washing it out a little bit, so be careful of that. But if you start adding a little bit of contrast, bring that temperature. I set it to 5500 Kelvin, which is daylight. It was daylight. Makes a little more sense, right? And you can start rocking that vibrance slider now. About 30 is good. And you do the same thing with saturation. You don't want to go too crazy. I'm really leery about making sure that this is going to be good. Now we could go into texture and clarity, dehaze, and all that stuff. I'm just going to knock up the texture and the clarity up. You could mess around with vignettes and stuff. If you're really into the vignette game, I recommend doing it manually, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So this is in program. You can see it's just kind of globally doing around. If you go back to your masks and you create, say, a radial gradient, for instance, and you went over this whole image, and then if you hit X, it inverts. Now what you could do is you could take the exposure down just a bit in those areas, and it's a lot more subtle, and it makes things look a lot richer. The light kind of comes this way, and so I'd imagine around these edges here it might be a little darker. You can also take the shadows down here a little bit with. It's not changing anything in the center. It's just around these edges, and it's bringing your eye right to that ship. I think that's pretty good. I might make this go in just a little bit. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Now, I am doing all this. You can't see in my office right now, but I have my iMac that I'm working on, and then I have a Huion 22-inch screen. It's actually a lot dimmer than what I'm seeing, or what your guys are probably seeing, and then it's dimmer to what, like if I drag this whole thing over to my other screen, I can see that it's a lot brighter and stuff. And that's okay, because it'll let me push those values, and then I could look on my other screen at the very end. And the reason why I'm doing it on the Huion tablet, besides just having it a little more muted, is I'm going to be using a pen to get rid of like certain things and clean things up in Photoshop. So, it's just easier instead of always working on my iMac screen, which is a much, much better screen. If I do it tame down on the Huion and then bring it over to the iMac at the very end, it tends to work better for me. All right, I think we're getting very, very close. I think over in this area, I think I need one more mask, another radial, and I have a heavy feather on here. I mean, you could do 100% feather on here. You want it to be subtle. So I'm going to bring up some of these magenta values in the sky over here. I'm also going to bring up some of the yellows and oranges, because in real life, that sky looked pretty dynamic, and we want to keep as original as possible without sacrificing the quality of everything else. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more brush. I'm just going to go over this puddle, and I'm going to up the exposure on that, bring the shadows up on that just a little bit. I'm going to bring the temperature down because it's actually shadows. Probably just a touch of magenta thrown in there, because if you go green, it starts looking fake, and we don't really have any greens in here. There's a little bit of greenish hue throughout here, I don't think that's going to be noticeable. And there's definitely nothing in the sky. So this is a reflection. It should have kind of that magenta tone. But instead of going warm like here, which looks really fake, I just went down with the temperature just a little bit. And you could hit subtract and get all fine-tuning on this. So helps with the brush. You go in a little smaller. Go as heavy-handed as you want. Having said that, people will start thinking you're doing AI images if you're pushing the values way too far. So you want your photography to stand out, and you want to be able to showcase the scene, but don't push those sliders so heavy that it looks unnatural. So after we get everything done and I go back, get rid of these people, get rid of anything that is bugging me. Like the more I'm looking at this pier, I think it's just out of place. So I think this is a pretty good start. So I'm going to hit open. Remember, we can always go back. You can always retweak your images, especially if you're working with RAW. You could, go back and forth as much as you want. If you're doing JPEGs, which sometimes I shoot JPEG with my Fuji camera, I try not to edit those much at all. If you are shooting with JPEG, but then you want to do a lot of editing, just know you're going to have a lot of artifacts. So. All right, so I'm going to turn my computer. All right, so now we need to get rid of the people. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. This tool here is called the remove tool. For really small stuff like in here and looks like I hit that with my brush. Stuff like that you could get super easy. I would even challenge probably these people would be real easy. It's pretty smart nowadays. It's not like just brushing over things. It literally is trying to analyze your picture and make stuff line up. See how it does. I may be going too willy-nilly here. Let's see. I don't know. Just fine. All right. And I'll probably leave this for sale sign here, but I'll probably get rid of some of these other things. They're more of a distraction. I'll leave the tape on the boat. I'll get rid of this. I'll actually zoom into that right now. Let me use the content aware fill. That works really good on small areas. So do that. All right, so this just takes a second here. So that did a pretty good job. So that's version 1. I think that did a pretty good job. Version 2 is not bad. A little bit of blue and I don't like. Version 3. I'm going to do version 3. Okay. So go back to the tool. It was the same color as what the remove tool comes out with, so I can't tell if I was getting that all. That looks fine. Like I said, I don't think people are going to pixel peep too much. It's just going to become a piece of artwork. Do it. Just going to go through the image here. I am going to just do one at a time. Zoom in here. Let's get rid of this dude here first. So. Go through this. A lot of times I'd be a lot more exact, but generative fill, I'm going to leave this blank. See what it could do. While that's generating, just know the resolution is not that good, and it does some weird stuff like this. Like that's not what we want. So it's almost comical sometimes. You're like, how did you come up with that? I'm gonna go ahead and leave this though, and blend it down, and then I'm gonna do one little section at a time, because if you do too much, it just gets confused. So generate. You could totally put what you want it to generate in there. You could go, hey, I want this to be, an ocean scene, or I want this to be, you know, Tonka truck, whatever. I just want to get rid of people, and it tends to do a good job if you just let it interpret it the way it wants to interpret it. All right, we're going to do this 3 times in a row, and it's going out on the internet to do this, so you got to be patient, which is not my strong point. But as you can see, it just did its thing. If you're not patient, that might not be the tool for you. Because some days your internet's really fast, and it's all fine and dandy, and other days not so much. Generate. You see there it says trim file sizes by deleter and used pixels, blah blah blah. Always a good idea. I don't think that's going to be a big deal. I could see a little bit of variation color. I think it'll be fine. But... all right, generate. That's kind of cool. I can put a little bird in there. I do a lot of birding, and that is what a little sandpiper would look like. But we'll just choose one. Again, before, after. There we go. So now the people are gone. I could still see right in here some funny business. I will probably zoom in on that right now. Just take care of it. And what I'll do is I'll just use the remove tool, real large, and it tends to be a little higher resolution than the generative fill for some odd reason. It's starting to look a little bit better. Again, that's not part of the image that your eye is going to be drawn to, so it is what it is. So now that we got all that back, I also go up and experiment. Sometimes I'll hit auto tone. I actually like what it did there, very subtle, just adjusted the tones. Auto contrast, didn't really do much of anything. Auto color usually doesn't work well, but I'm going to do it anyway just to show you guys. It did make it more natural looking. Back to, I like this a little more sunset. This was actually sunrise, just so you know, because I'm on the East Coast right now. But it's got that sunset feel. I'm from the West Coast. I'm from Oregon. And this is something I'd see as the sun setting. The only way I see it on the Florida coast is if I went to the Gulf side, which is a few hours away from me. So this was about half an hour from my house. So. All right, so I'm going to go to the crop. I'm going to go back to 8x10. That's what we started with. And I'm just going to crop it in Photoshop really quick. I think somewhere there. There was stuff on the outside that was just a little much. Really, the feature is the ship and the sky behind it. So, all right. So I'm going to go back to camera raw. This would be equivalent to going back to Lightroom. I think I will do this, and then I'm going to bring the ship back. So I clicked on auto just to see what Adobe thought, and I think the colors balanced a lot better. Now you could do there's all these new things, adaptive skies, do like that. I'm gonna go with sunrise because that's what it was, and yeah, let's do that. And then you could do adaptive subject. I think that warm pop looks pretty cool. And these are new in Photoshop, these adaptive presets. I actually not used them until today because this is a brand new install on a computer that I just set up. And I wanted to check them out. They work pretty well, looks like. There's also styles in here. You could, totally do that. A lot of people sell presets. I have a bunch. Jared Pullen, I'm going to give him a shout out. Has some excellent ones that I think are really good. I'm not going to do any of these. I think they're just a little too much. This is looking pretty good. So now I'm going to go back and see it's created the masks for me. That's pretty nice. If we wanted to, you could take this down just to 80%. Yeah, I think that looks really nice. Like that. More pop, same type of thing. If you think it's done too much, you could take it down. I actually think it's probably okay, but you could take it up too. I think I'll just leave it the way it is. But I am going to add linear gradient. I'm just going to take the exposure down. Take the contrast down just a little bit. I'm going to mess with the color. Take the blacks down just a bit. Highlights. Then I'm going to do another one. Do it up in the corner over here. And we're just going to take the exposure down just a little bit, just to continue to draw your eye towards that ship. Okay, so we're going to go to the warm pop. And I'm just going to bring that exposure up just a little bit more. A little bit of highlights, just a little bit of the shadows, and a little bit more contrast just to make it pop. Now over the whole thing, go to the whole thing, I'm going to go down to the dehaze, and I'm going to put some negative dehaze in there just to get that glowing effect. You could go full on dehaze and it's going to make it look like night. We want this to look like, pretty realistic to what's up. So I'm just going to do a little bit. I'm going to add some clarity and some texture to the picture. Do a natural vignette. Just a little bit. Now the only thing that's bugging me is right here, this purple right here. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to do one more. I'll do a radial somewhere in this ballpark. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the exposure up just a bit. I'm going to take the contrast down a little bit. Push the highlights up, the shadows up. I'm just going to make this tone kind of match this tone. A little bit more whites. Right, with the blacks just a bit. Yeah, that's looking pretty sharp, I think. One more radial right here because we can. I'm just going to see what it looks like. Adding a little bit more highlights in there. A little more whites. About there. So it's not like mega blue. The blue is going to blend into the rest of it. Sky. Now, one thing that bugs me before I start wrapping this up is the blue that's along here. Now, I bet I did one more. So let's do a radial. We're just going to do it super, super thin. It's going to be hard to somewhere in there. Okay. We'll bring up the exposure just a touch, and we'll bring up the warmth right there. A little bit into there too. Mention this has it's so delicate because it's so small. I think somewhere in there. Let's click off of it. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. All right, so just going to go back to Photoshop. This is not something that you need to do necessarily, but something I do my pictures just to make me stand out a little bit. I think this looks great. I think this would make a great print on somebody's wall. Your image is pretty much finished, so I'm not going to mess with any of that. I just wanted to show you that sometimes you'll want to adjust the levels and step away from the image once in a while and look at it and see, man, are these way too oversaturated? But what I do is I'm going to select all. I just put a little border around it. I like the look of actual film. Back when I was a kid, you get your film back and a lot of times you got white borders around it. And so that looks really nice to me. I think this is a really good start to an image. The one thing that you could do, you could go to sharpen. I'll just hit smart sharpen and let it do its thing. And it's going to, go through and sharpen things up. You don't want to go heavy-handed on anything. That's why some of these smart tools work. But anyway, that's it. Pretty basic edit. Deselect everything, and that is the finished picture. Of course, you could go back in and hit your autos. They shouldn't really change. Maybe the auto color will know. At this point, it's so edited. Just the auto color did a little bit, but so edited, it is pretty harmonious. If you went too heavy-handed, those things would change quite a bit. And anyway, so this is it. This is a finished fine art print that you could sell in a gallery if you wanted to, or like for me, the reason why I did this is because this is in Jacksonville, Florida, and this shows that it's in Jacksonville, Florida, and people comically put these for sale signs up and stuff, and the city was fining the person for not getting it off the beach, and it was just a shipwreck, but it shows the place. So this would be something that you could sell to a local person, and it's a memory. It made big news. I don't know if the ship's still there. I haven't been back for a few weeks or a month, but they really want it off the beach, because just to the right here, there's some little resort places, and as you know, there was the pier here, and people are intrigued by it. There's tons of people all morning going around getting their pictures with it, but we got it to the point where they're gone. All right, so that's it. Taking a basic snapshot, kind of making fine art out of it. I think you guys could do this pretty easily. And again, I'd shoot in RAW on something like this, but if you did shoot in JPEG, just know that the image is already degraded, so everything you do is going to degrade a little bit more. I wouldn't go very heavy. I would do less than I did. Now, granted, if you did it in JPEG, the colors would probably be already a little bit more vibrant and everything anyway, because they have simulations built into cameras that burn that into JPEGs. I prefer to shoot in RAW. It gives you more flexibility, and that's what it's all about. It's about what you want the picture to look like, not what I want the picture to look like or whatever. So, all right, there it is.